In this video, we're going to clear up the three biggest differences between the driver and the irons. Let's get started. Let's talk about one of the biggest differences between the irons and the driver, and that's angle of attack. Okay, so a lot of people have heard that you want to hit down on the golf ball, but people tend to overdo this way too much, right? So if this is the ground. Welcome back, shot benders. Today we're going to clear up the three biggest differences between the driver and the irons. This is a question I get a lot throughout my lessons, so I wanted to make a video to help you out at home. Let's get started. So let's get started with the first biggest difference, and that's going to be stance width. Okay, so what most people don't realize is the width of stance can actually affect how steep or how shallow you can come into the golf ball. So with the irons, we want to hit a little bit more down on the golf ball. So we're going to have our stance width more narrow. Let's call it shoulder width apart. Okay, so with the driver, being that we want to hit up on the ball a little bit, we want to have that stance width just outside shoulder width apart. Okay, now notice what I did there when I widened my stance. Okay, so when my stance is more narrow, you're going to see a little bit more of a neutral spine tilt, right, where my spine is just ever so slightly to the right. Okay, that's important. But with the wider stance, you're going to see my spine tilt increases a little bit. This is huge for helping us launch the golf ball with the driver. Okay, so for irons, we want to be more shoulder width apart with a little bit of spine tilt there. With a driver, we want to be more outside shoulder width apart, and the spine tilt will increase there. Okay, that's going to be important for contact and launching the golf ball. Okay, so for good iron contact and launching the golf ball, we want to have a narrower stance. For the driver, a wider stance with a little bit of spine tilt there. Okay, so that's going to be the first biggest step there. All right, so now that we have a better understanding of stance width and how that affects contact and launching the golf ball, you'll see here that I have 3 golf balls, and that's pretty much where you want every ball position for golf. Okay, so if we had a pitching wedge, that'd be pretty much in the middle of the stance there. Okay, and then if we had a driver, that'd be on the inside of the left heel. So then we just progressively go from there. So pitching wedge, 9 iron, 8, 7, 6, 5, all the way up to driver. Okay. Now, knowing that all our ball positions will essentially be from here to here, right? Why it looks so different is because as the club gets longer, we start to widen our stance. So if I was to widen my stance to a driver stance, now that ball looks way more far forward to the eye than what it actually is, right? So it's still on the inside of the left heel, but now we're in a better position to launch the driver, where with the iron, we want to be more not only narrow with the stance, but we're going to have that ball position further back, which helps us hit more down on the golf ball. If this video is helping you, tap that like button and subscribe if you want to continue to get better at golf. All right, so what we want to do with the irons, have the feet about shoulder width apart. We're going to have the ball position a little more centered, just forward of the sternum there. And then we want to hit slightly down on the ball. We're talking about 4 or 5 degrees. With the driver, we want to have that wider stance. Let's call it outside shoulder width apart. That allows us to tilt our spine a little bit. And it allows us to hit more up on the golf ball, which is going to help us launch it nice and high and hit it far. So a nice bonus tip for you all is not only is ball position important for contact and launching the golf ball, it's also very important in direction as well. So the further back you have the ball in your stance, the more you're going to catch it in that in to out path. Okay? The further forward that ball is, the more you're going to catch it on that out to in path, okay, or that over the top path. Okay, so you don't want the ball position too far forward because then it'll promote a slice or a low hook. So what you want to do is have it on the inside of the left heel with the driver, or just slightly forward to center for the iron. That way we can still catch it somewhat on the in to out path that we're looking for, which is going to help with contact, direction, and launching the ball. So our swing is essentially an arc. Okay, so the arc goes in, straightens out, and then goes back in. All right, so ball position is very important in direction as well, because if we have that ball too far back, what we're going to do is catch that ball too much in to out. And if we have the ball too far forward, what we're going to do is catch that ball too out to in. All right. both of those would cause direction issues, okay? So ideally we'd have the ball right on the inside of the left heel for the driver. That's going to allow us to come in shallow, but not too shallow. And then with the iron, that allows us to get the ball position in to out while still hitting down on the golf ball. So if you can think of some other big differences between the iron and the driver, comment them down below. Alright, so now that we have a clearer understanding of what the stance width should be and where we should have the ball position for the irons and the driver, let's talk about one of the biggest differences between the irons and the driver, and that's angle of attack. Okay, so a lot of people have heard that you want to hit down on the golf ball, but people tend to overdo this way too much, right? So if this is the ground, people are trying to hit down on it 30-40 degrees. It's not what you want to do. The best players and the best ball strikers come in about 4 or 5 degrees. So that's pretty shallow, which is awesome news because that makes the transition from iron to driver a lot more smooth, okay? It's not as big a difference as people think it is, all right? Only talking about maybe a 6-degree difference between those two. All right, so with the irons, we want to have a narrower stance, ball position more centered. With the driver, we want to have a wider stance, ball position more off the left heel. With the irons, we want to hit down slightly on it. 4 or 5 degrees is what we're looking for. With the driver, we want to hit slightly up on it. Let's call it 1 or 2 degrees up on the driver. That's going to give us the maximum distance, okay? All right, so now that we have a clearer understanding of the 3 biggest differences between the irons and the driver, the transition between both should be much more seamless, okay? So we want to make the transition between driver and iron, shot to shot, as smooth as we can. That's going to allow us to play the best golf we can and have more fun out there. So because we made the adjustments in our setup, that makes our swing much more uniform, all right? Meaning we don't have to change a whole lot between the iron and the driver with our swing when we can just adjust it with our setup. So now that you have a better understanding between the iron and the driver, this should make the transition much more seamless, okay? If this video helped you, tap that like button, and if you want to continue to get better at golf, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.